What's up, guys? I'm Mitch from the DIYRecordingStudio.com, and today I have an awesome video on guitar speakers, why they are the most cost-effective and important decision to capturing the guitar tones that you are chasing as either a guitar player or as a recording engineer. You don't want to miss this one, so let's get into it. So if you've been following this channel recently, I've been doing a bit of a deep dive into how to get the best guitar tones. And I have to give a shout out to Glenn Fricker and Kristian Kohle. Their videos, they've already kind of covered this subject where they've shot out speakers like the Vintage 30 and the Celestion Greenback against stock standard Celestion speakers that you will find in like a Marshall cab, and kind of demonstrated that the speaker has such an importance on the tonality that you get from your guitar sounds. Now, they've already made that video, but the reason why I'm making this video is because I want to show you my personal experience that I've had recently with a band where they came in with some great sounding amplifiers and their Marshall JCM 900 cabs, and they'd been chasing this guitar sound for ages. And it's a familiar story. We've all had that moment where we've been chasing the guitar tones and we're not sure why we're not getting them. And you guys at home might have also gone through this, where no matter what microphone you use or what mic preamp you use or the EQ settings you use on the mix, you're just not getting that tonality that you've heard on records before. And I'll tell you now, my experience is definitely that the missing piece of that puzzle was the speaker. It's mind-blowing because one of the cheapest decisions you can make is to upgrade the speakers in your speaker cabinet. Now, recently I purchased an empty 2x12 speaker cabinet and put a Celestion Greenback in it, and that sounded excellent. Now, what I did before my latest recording session was get a Vintage 30 in that same cabinet. So now what I have is a 2x12 with one Greenback and one Vintage 30. Now, if you think this is maybe a bit crazy because you should have the same speakers in a cab or what have you, look, there's arguments for and against that, but I'll tell you now the reason to my madness on this situation. Quite simply, I have a small home studio. I can't have lots of speaker cabinets everywhere. And on top of that, when I mic up a guitar cabinet, I'm focusing on one speaker at a time. And I'll place my microphone combinations around that one speaker. So I don't need 4 speakers in a cab. I need one speaker to have the tonality that I want and put the microphones there. So now what I have is a Greenback that I can focus on, or a Vintage 30. Now, my reasoning for this is if I want something that's a bit grungier or a bit bluesier and a bit more mid-forward, I'll use the Greenback. If I want something that's more metal, a little bit more scooped in the mids, a bit brighter in the top, I'll use the Vintage 30. Now, we'll see in the coming weeks how that transpires. But I'll tell you this, on the weekend, I had a band in the studio again, a new one called Krankwalk. I'll put their details in the description down below. Go check them out. Let's jump into Cubase and have a listen. So this is the guitar tracking session. This is kind of in the rough mix stage at the moment. There's some processing here and there, but the guitars are completely raw. On each guitar track, what I have is a 57, a ribbon mic, and an MD421. And this is my go-to guitar mic setup. If you want more information on why I choose these 3 microphones on a guitar cab, hit me up in the comment sections down below. Maybe I'll make a video on that next. And what I did was we tracked these guitarists and we did the session with their own speaker cabs and then with my speaker cab. And what you're hearing is my speaker cab, the Vintage 30 mic'd up, and I'll just solo the guitars. And that is the sound of the Vintage 30. And I've got a Pro Q3 where we can analyze the frequency response. And And you can see while they're chugging and palm muting, we've got this kind of boost around 165 and then a boost in the top around 2 to 4. And then there's that bit of a scoop in the mid-range, which is pretty much what I would expect to see in a vintage 30. And it's got this really weighty sound without any EQ. There's some nice bottom end, and we could choose to attenuate that or leave it, depending on what we want. We've got nice bite in the top, and that's basically the sound of the vintage 30. I'll play on. So as we get along in the chord progression there, where they're going higher up on the guitar, we still have that top end sizzle, a little bit less in the bottom, but still a bit of a defined scoop in the EQ curvature of that speaker's frequency response. And remember, like, the microphones I've chosen are playing into that too, but that's what we're seeing. Now, what I did was use the exact same mics and preamps on the other cabinet setup, and that cabinet was a Marshall JCM 900. It contained 4 of the stock Celestion G12 75 watt speakers that everyone kind of knows. They have a sound. Let's listen to it. So we can see we're getting quite a spike at 2.2K. There is a bit of a scoop, but less so. It is definitely more brighter up this end, and there's like less roll off. Let's go back to our vintage 30. Notice the difference in this kind of area here, and then the roll off and the scoop, and then the boost in the lows. In the stock Celestions, we've got more of a 600 boost and then this 7K stuff. Like, there's less of a roll off. And I'm hearing that. To me, this lacks a bit of depth and weight to it. It can be a bit shrill sounding, a bit too bright. What's most important is let's listen to it in the mix. You can hear that we've got this kind of dark, fat, but still edgy kind of sound coming from our guitar cabs with the vintage 30 mic'd up. Now let's go to the stock Celestion. Cool, and what I'm hearing as a difference is the low mids have way more clarity on the vintage 30, but the Celestion does cut through more because it's brighter in those tops. But to me, it sounds a bit hollow. It sounds like it's lacking a bit. The brightness isn't necessarily a pleasing type of brightness. Like, don't be fooled. Just because it's brighter, we think that it sounds clearer and maybe better, but harshness is a problem in mixes. And what I'm hearing is a harshness in those highs, whereas the vintage 30 sounds darker, but it's because those highs aren't as harsh and they're a bit more rolled off in a kind of nicer way that works in the mix. Now, if I wanted these vintage 30s to cut through a little more, it's pretty simple. I can just chuck on some EQ, you know? And then they poke out, but they still don't sound as harsh as what those Celestions sound like. especially when it gets to those chords. In the Vintage 30, they cut through enough, but they're not harsh and tearing your ears off as much as the stock standard Celestion G12. And remember, like, this is with the lightest touch of EQ. I could go further with this to dial in tones if I wanted to. What I generally go for is I derive the tone of a guitar from what the guitarist gives me through that cab, and then I have my 3 microphones, my SM57, my MD421, and my ribbon, and then the way I mix those and balance those 3 microphones gives me my guitar tone that I'm chasing. Now, I should mention, obviously, that all of these were level matched as close as you can within a dB. There's no trickery here or anything. It's really just the frequency response difference of each speaker. But what I'm interested in, of course, is what are you guys hearing? What do you prefer? Do you prefer the stock Celestion speaker, or do you like the Vintage 30? Now, if you like the Vintage 30, what you should know, this was covered in a video, as I mentioned before, by Glenn Fricker, where the new Vintage 30s are a more faithful recreation of the vintage 30s that everyone is chasing tonally. So if you want that classic Vintage 30 sound, make sure you get one of the latest reissues of the Vintage 30. You can get them from different stores. I got one from a store in Hobart. Make sure they have the transparent dust cap, and I'll put a link to it down below if it's something that you're looking to get. Now, just remember, if you're a guitarist and you're chasing that iconic hard rock or metal tone, maybe you don't need another pedal. Maybe you don't need another guitar or a different guitar amp or to spend a fortune. Maybe all you need is a $200 speaker change in your cabinet. It's ridiculous, I know, but we all love to try and chase these tones or these ideas of how we think things should sound, and we often think that it's an expensive solution, like it's going to cost us a lot of money, thousands of dollars to get there. But when it's something as simple as a speaker change, it's only a couple $100. It is the easiest, cheapest, most affordable way to shape the tone as a guitarist or as a recording engineer. I can't recommend enough to look into speakers themselves. It has changed my perspective on guitar tones. I feel like I'm finally getting the guitar tones I've been chasing for years just because of changing speakers. It's ridiculous. So hopefully this video helps you all. If you're chasing that guitar tone, look into it. Either look at my previous video on the greenback, or obviously go check out the other videos I've mentioned. I'll put links to those down below. There's some great ones from other YouTubers out there. Definitely go check them out. If you want any more information on the stuff I talked about in this video, hit me up in the comment sections down below. Do you guys want to hear more about the microphones I use and how that works and why? I'd be keen to know what you guys think. Don't forget the band Krankwalk. I'll put their link down below. Shout out to you boys. Awesome session this weekend. And as always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. And also, I forgot to mention, we actually just cracked 6,000 subscribers. Thank you so much to all of the new subscribers that have come along and all of the subscribers that have been there since I started this channel. 6,000 isn't a lot of subscribers in the scope of things, but it's a lot to me. It means everything to see people signing up to my channel and enjoying the content. There's been a lot of positive feedback in the comment sections. Thank you all so much. It means everything to me to hear that you like the content I'm creating, and it keeps me going. It keeps me doing this thing because we don't make any money doing this stuff. It is literally just the sharing of information. I love this stuff. I'm a massive nerd. I love music. I love audio, and I love geeking out about gear. And obviously you guys that have come and subscribed also do too. So thank you so much for subscribing. And if you're new, please subscribe. Thank you all again. I'm Mitch from the DIYRecordingstudio.com. I'll catch you soon.